Russell Brand is a British comedian, actor, author, and media personality who rose to prominence in the early 2000s. Born in Essex, England, Russell Brand became known for his sharp wit, outspoken personality, and unpredictable on-stage presence. His stand-up comedy often blended humor with deeply personal stories about addiction, fame, and self-destruction, themes drawn directly from his own life. Brand first gained mainstream attention in the UK through television and radio hosting, quickly developing a reputation as a controversial figure who frequently pushed boundaries. His unfiltered style earned him massive popularity, and just as much criticism. By the late 2000s, he transitioned into Hollywood, starring in high-profile films such as Forgetting Sarah Marshall and Get Him to the Greek. Around the same time, his relationships and lifestyle kept him constantly in the tabloids, making him one of the most talked-about celebrities of that era. In the 2000s, Brand shifted away from traditional entertainment. He became an author, podcast host, and online commentator, building a global audience by discussing politics, media trust, mental health, and personal freedom. This transformation gained him millions of followers, but also placed him at the center of growing controversy. By the time serious allegations emerged years later, Russell Brand was no longer just a comedian or actor. He was a polarizing public figure with a loyal fan base and outspoken critics. And that context matters, because fame, power, and influence sit at the heart of the case now unfolding. The legal case against Russell Brand began long before any courtroom appearance. In 2023, multiple women came forward with separate allegations of sexual assault and abuse, claiming incidents that allegedly occurred between the late 1990s and early 2000s. The women described encounters that they say were non-consensual, emotionally coercive, and enabled by Brand's status as a powerful celebrity at the time. Some accusers said they felt unable to speak out earlier because of his fame, influence, and the media environment surrounding him. The allegations were first reported publicly through a joint investigation by major British media outlets, triggering widespread shock and intense public debate. Shortly after the reports were released, British police confirmed they had opened a formal criminal investigation, encouraging anyone with relevant information to come forward. Russell Brand responded quickly. In a public video statement, he strongly denied all allegations, insisting that every relationship he had was consensual. He accused the media of running a coordinated attack and claimed the accusations were politically motivated. At this stage, there were no criminal charges, only allegations and an ongoing investigation. But the public response was immediate and severe. Brand's media appearances stopped, business partnerships were paused, and streaming platforms began distancing themselves, even as the legal process was still unfolding. What began as accusations in the media was now moving towards something far more serious: the criminal justice system. And that shift would soon change everything. As the investigation continued behind the scenes, the case against Russell Brand took a major legal turn. In late 2025, British prosecutors announced that new criminal charges had been authorized based on evidence gathered during the ongoing police investigation. These new charges included 1 count of rape, 1 count of sexual assault. According to court documents, the allegations relate to separate incidents from 2009 involving 2 different women. At the time, Brand was one of the most visible figures in British entertainment, appearing regularly on television, touring internationally, and enjoying peak celebrity status. The approval of these charges marked a critical escalation. Until this point, the case had largely existed in the realm of accusations and investigation. Now it had entered the formal criminal prosecution phase, where evidence would be tested in court. Prosecutors stated that the decision to bring charges was made after a careful review of witness testimony, timelines, and supporting material. As with all criminal cases, the burden now rests on the prosecution to prove the allegations beyond reasonable doubt. Brand's legal team immediately responded, reaffirming that he denies all charges and will contest them fully in court. For Brand, the announcement was more than another headline. It meant the possibility of a jury trial, public scrutiny under oath, and life-altering legal consequences. For the public, it signaled that this case was no longer just about past accusations. It was now about criminal accountability and what would ultimately be decided inside a courtroom. On February 24, 2026, Russell Brand appeared in a London courtroom for the most serious legal moment of his career. The hearing took place at Southwark Crown Court, where Brand formally responded to the latest criminal charges brought against him. In a brief but decisive appearance, Brand pleaded not guilty to the newly added counts of rape and sexual assault. He spoke only to confirm his plea, offering no public statement inside the courtroom. The judge outlined the next legal steps, confirming that the case will proceed toward a full jury trial, expected later in 2026. Brand was granted continued bail under existing conditions while the legal process moves forward. Outside the courtroom, there were no dramatic scenes, no press conference, no emotional address to the public. Instead, Brand's legal team released a short statement reiterating that he denies all allegations and maintains that any past relationships were consensual. They emphasize that Brand intends to challenge the prosecution's case and present his defense during trial. For the legal system, this appearance marked a procedural step, but symbolically it was significant. The moment a defendant pleads not guilty, the case formally shifts into its most serious phase, where evidence, testimony, and credibility will ultimately be tested before a jury. Until that trial concludes, Russell Brand remains legally innocent, but the spotlight surrounding him has never been brighter. Long before the case reached a courtroom, the impact on Russell Brand's career had already begun. After the allegations became public, Brand's presence in mainstream entertainment rapidly declined. Television appearances were canceled, upcoming projects were quietly paused or dropped, and several media partners began distancing themselves as the investigation unfolded. Streaming platforms removed or de-emphasized content featuring Brand, while publishers and event organizers avoided future collaborations. At the same time, Brand's online following remained active. On social media and video platforms, he continued to post content addressing politics, media trust, and personal freedom, often framing the allegations as part of a wider campaign against him. This response deepened the divide in public opinion. Supporters argued that Brand was being unfairly targeted, citing his outspoken views and the principle of innocent until proven guilty. Critics countered that the accusations reflected long-standing patterns of behavior that had been ignored during his rise to fame. The debate played out across social media, podcasts, and comment sections, often emotional, often polarized. For the entertainment industry, the situation raised uncomfortable questions about accountability, celebrity power, and how allegations are handled when they involve influential figures. Regardless of where public opinion falls, the professional consequences for Brand have been undeniable. His career trajectory, once defined by mainstream success, now exists largely outside traditional entertainment, overshadowed by a legal case still waiting for its final outcome. With his not guilty plea entered, the legal process for Russell Brand now moves into its most critical phase. The next step is a full jury trial, expected later in 2026. During that trial, prosecutors will present evidence, witness testimony, and timelines in an effort to prove the charges beyond reasonable doubt. Brand's defense team will have the opportunity to challenge that evidence, cross-examine witnesses, and present their own case to the jury. In the UK legal system, a not guilty plea means the burden of proof rests entirely on the prosecution. Until a verdict is reached, Brand remains legally innocent. If convicted, the charges could carry serious prison sentences and permanently alter his public and professional life. If acquitted, the legal case would end, though public scrutiny may not. For now, Brand remains on bail under existing conditions, and the court will continue to manage pretrial hearings and evidence disclosure behind the scenes. The final outcome will not be decided by public opinion, headlines, or social media debates. It will be decided in court. And until that verdict is delivered, this case remains open, unresolved, and closely watched. The case involving Russell Brand is about more than one individual or one courtroom decision. It highlights a larger conversation that has been unfolding across the entertainment industry for years, about power, fame, and accountability. When allegations surface long after the events they describe, they raise difficult questions. Why do victims often wait to speak? How does celebrity influence silence? And how should society balance public scrutiny with the principle of due process? Cases like this force the industry to confront uncomfortable realities about how behavior was once overlooked, excused, or normalized when success and influence were involved. At the same time, the legal system exists to separate allegations from facts, to examine evidence carefully, and to reach conclusions based on law, not emotion. Whatever the verdict may be, this case reflects a broader shift, a shift toward greater accountability, greater scrutiny of powerful figures, and a growing expectation that fame does not place anyone above the law. In that sense, the outcome will matter, not just for Russell Brand, but for how similar cases are understood in the future. If you want updates as this case develops, or breakdowns of other major Hollywood legal battles, subscribe for fact-based, neutral storytelling, because the truth takes time and the verdict comes last.